A folk wrestling style is any traditional style of wrestling, which may or may not be codified as a modern sport. Most cultures have developed regional forms of grappling. Europe, British Isles. Traditionally, wrestling has two main centres in Great Britain: the West Country, where the Devon and Cornwall styles were developed, and in the Northern Counties, the home of the Cumberland and Westmoreland styles. North Country styles. Lancashire wrestling is a historic wrestling style from Lancashire in England, known for its catch-as-catch-can, or no wrestling holds barred style. Catch wrestling, or catch-as-catch-can, originated from Lancashire wrestling but was further developed during the travelling circus phenomenon of the 19th and early 20th century United States. Backhold wrestling, whose origin is unknown, was practiced in North England and Scotland in the 7th and 8th century, but competitions are held in present day at the Highland and Border Games as well as in France and Italy. Styles of backhold are distinct from Lancashire wrestling because they enforce rules designed to minimize injury to the participants by disallowing ground fighting. Cumberland and Westmoreland wrestling, or Cumbrian wrestling, is practiced in the northern counties of England. It is a form of backhold wrestling where the wrestlers put the left arm over the opponent's right arm and grip behind the opponent's back. Throws and trips are important since the first wrestler to touch the ground a break hold loses. Competitors often wear stockings, singlet and trunks. Scottish backhold is a form of backhold practiced in Scotland, almost identical in style to Cumberland and Westmoreland style apart from variations in rules. Competitors often wear kilts. West Country styles. Cornish wrestling, from Cornwall, is a form of jacket wrestling. It does not use groundwork. It is related to Breton Goran wrestling. Devon wrestling, or Devonshire wrestling, was a style similar to the Cornish style in that jackets were worn. Devonshire wrestlers, however, also wore heavy clogs and were able to kick the opponents. In matches between Cornish and Devonshire wrestlers might have worn one only suit. Unlike Cornish wrestling, the style is generally considered to be extinct. Ireland collar and elbow wrestling is native to Ireland and can be traced back to the 17th century. It has ties to the Tailteann Games between 632 BC and 1169 AD. Nordic countries. Glima, the national sport of Iceland, traces its history to the Vikings and the Norse. It is a standing style with rules similar to Schwijau and Buck and consists of three forms. 1. Ridgic, the backhold grip. 2. Brokartoka, the pant and belt grip that utilizes a leather harness around the waist and thighs, which the wrestlers hold, and 3. Lorzatoka, free grip, is the most aggressive form of glima and contestants can use the holds they wish. It is practiced both outdoors and indoors. Cragcast, type of folk wrestling originating from Sweden, similar to freestyle wrestling. Continental Europe. Western Europe. Goran, traditional Breton jacket wrestling, similar to Cornish wrestling. Wrangeln, meaning to wrangle in German. Wrangeln is a prominent form of wrestling in Austria. The winner is the man who pins his opponents to the ground. Schwingen, Swiss style of wrestling, considered to be one of the oldest forms of wrestling. Wrestlers wear special canvas trousers. Caligon, another form of Swiss folk wrestling, whose techniques were further developed among others into freestyle wrestling. Southern Europe. Lucha leonesa, native to the Spanish region of Leon, touching ground loses. Lotta Camperdanza, from Italy. Sardinian collar, jacket and belt wrestling practiced by countrymen and shepherds in southern Sardinia. Strumper, Sardinian wrestling in Italy, also known as sea strumper, simply is trumper. Eastern Europe Tranta, upright wrestling from Romania and Moldova. It can also be practiced from the knees. Narodno Arvania is a wrestling style from Serbia. In Narodno Arvania there are 3 disciplines. Depending on the hold, they can be chest hold, belt hold or back hold. Pehlevan is a wrestling style practiced in Albania and Serbia. Northern Europe, Pakistan's more practiced in North and West Lithuania. Ristine's more practiced in East and South Lithuania. Asia, Central Asia, Mongolian wrestling bok, traditional Kaka Mongolian jacket wrestling where touching the ground with anything other than a foot loses the match. Bok means wrestling or wrestler in Mongolian. Buyut wrestling, Buknu Loldun, Irat wrestling, a Western Mongolian wrestling. Southern Mongolian wrestling, jacket wrestling that wear jacket made of cow leather, long pants with chaps over and boots. Rules and techniques are more similar to Shuai Jiao than to bok practiced in Mongolia, where wrestlers wear only short, tight, collarless, heavy-duty short-sleeved jacket and small, tight-fitting briefs made of red or blue-colored cotton cloth. Turkish wrestling, Alish, a Kyrgyz belt wrestling. Koraz, a Tatar wrestling style. Karash, a Uzbek wrestling style. Uresh, traditional Tuvan jacket wrestling in southern Siberia. Strongly influenced by Mongolian wrestling, Kaka Mongolian and Tuvan wrestlers wear almost same jacket. Kyaz, traditional Kazakh jacket wrestling. Leg grabs are not allowed, but a wrestler may trip the legs. Gashting Eri, traditional Tajik jacket wrestling. East Asia, China Shuai Jiao, Chinese jacket wrestling originating from Beijing, Tianjin and Baoding in northern Hebei, which means throw and trip, also known as Guanjiao and Liao Jiao, meaning continuing trip and hold up and trip. In Qing dynasty time it was also known as Buku's Manchu word for wrestling, which has the root as Mongol word bok. This style of wrestling was the style of martial arts practiced by imperial guards in the Liao, Jin, Yuan, Ming and Qing dynasties. The present techniques were codified by the Kangxi Emperor in the 1670s. Traditionally wrestlers wear jacket called dalyan and chaps over the pants, which allow grabbing the chaps for lifting. In addition, Qin techniques such as arm bars were allowed in Beijing, and striking and blocking using upper arms were allowed in Tianjin. Rules have since incorporated Shanxi Daijiao and modern Olympic wrestlings. Daijiao, Chinese wrestling from Xinzhou, northern Shanxi province. Competitors wear only pants, without jacket, belt, or boots. Its primary techniques are the 48 leg takedowns, first codified in the Song dynasty circa 1180. This form of wrestling was popular throughout northern China until the spread of Shuai Jiao, which is considered more advanced in its grappling and tripping techniques. It was colloquially known as Mo Ni Qiu, literally grabbing the mud. Qiu being a kind of catfish in northern China. Qilixi, Chinese belt wrestling practiced by Uyghur nationality. Gge, Chinese belt wrestling practiced by Yi nationality in Sichuan and Yunnan. Gge literally means holding waist. The 3 main rules are: no tripping using the legs, no grabbing the jacket or pants, no pushing or striking. Rules have now been changed to allow holding the legs. Endraldaluad, Chinese wrestling practiced by Miao Hmong nationality throughout southwestern China. A belt wrestling style. Competitors can wear traditional dress or modern dress, but they must hold on to the belt at all times. Bega, Chinese belt wrestling practiced by the Tibetan people, also known as Jiats and Yuri in Tibet, Jets in western Sichuan, and Jiaris in Qinghai. It is a form of belt wrestling. Wrestlers compete barefoot and must hold the belt at all times. No tripping is allowed. Leg trips were introduced circa the 13th century, making 2 distinct forms. Other countries: sumo, Japanese wrestling based on forcing the opponent out of the ring or to touch the ground with anything other than the soles of the feet. Sumo is notable for allowing slaps and strikes with the open palm. The rules are codified during Tokugawa shogunate period based on Xiangpu, the Chinese wrestling style during Tang dynasty. Jujutsu, ancient style of Japanese wrestling that focuses on throws, pins, chokes and joint locks. Further refined by samurai during the Sengoku period. Sssirium, Korean belt wrestling contested in a sandpit. Tegumi is the folk wrestling practiced in Okinawa. Marawari Wazu, the indigenous style of the Formosan Aboriginal people of Taiwan such as the Paiwan and Bunun tribes, performed on a circular sandpit with competitors grabbing hold of their opponents' large waist belts before the start of the match. It involves many skillful throws and is an important part of the national Aboriginal games. Western Asia, Middle East Gulash, a traditional Azerbaijani wrestling style. Iranian wrestling Akoshti includes the Iran White Palavani and numerous other provincial styles. Karaku kick. Rules are similar to Olympic freestyle wrestling. Wrestlers are not oiled. Oil wrestling. Wrestlers wear special leather trousers, kispet, and are oiled. Kurdolian China Arba, traditional Georgian combined martial arts and wrestling. Kokh, a traditional Armenian style of wrestling. South Asia Boli Kala is a traditional form of wrestling from Bangladesh. Inbuan is the traditional wrestling style of the Mizoram state of India. Malakro is the South Asian form of sport wrestling found mostly in Pakistan and India. Malayuddha, traditional styles extant in South India. Mukhna is a form of folk wrestling from the northeast Indian state of Manipur. Pelwani Kushti is the Mughal style of wrestling from India. The Vajra Mushti, a form of Indian wrestling in which the weapon is employed. Southeast Asia Naban, Burmese wrestling. Bokchambab is a folk wrestling style from Cambodia. Benjangulat is a Sundanese form of wrestling popular in rural Indonesia. The Vat Sitrien, Vietnamese wrestling. Origins from Ha Tây province of North Vietnam. Bultong, the indigenous style of the Igorot people in northern Luzon of the Philippine archipelago. Buno, the indigenous style of the Aeta people and the Mangyan peoples in central and southern Luzon of the Philippine archipelago. Dumog, the indigenous style of the Visayan Islands of the Philippine archipelago. Americas. Luta Livre, Brazilian style of submission wrestling without a belted jacket. Lucha Libre, Mexican style of wrestling. Huka style of wrestling practiced by the indigenous Yawalapiti people of the Amazon basin. Africa. Lucha Canaria, a style of wrestling originating from the Guanches ethne in the Canary Islands and further developed by Spanish colonists. Traditional, related styles of West African wrestling, known as Laambi in Senegal, Bora in the Gambia, Evala in Togo, and traditional in Niger and Burkina Faso. International competition takes place during the Jeux de la Francophonie and the newly organized Championnat d'Afrique de la Traditional. Tigel, traditional wrestling of Ethiopia. Gresh, traditional wrestling practiced in Tunisia, Oceania. Karada, a modern synthesis that combines traditional Aboriginal dance, mainly in the form of kangaroo mimicry, with a style of wrestling performed around a yellow 4.5 meters diameter circle with black and red borders similar to the Aboriginal flag. Competitors wear knee-length pants, a wide sash belt and a jersey that can be grabbed to assist in throws. It is based on similar games that were were played in pre-colonial Australia and is usually performed during NAIDOC in the western suburbs of Sydney. Extinct Indigenous Australian styles include Todaran from southern Victoria, Partambalan from southern NSW, Goombu Boodoo from western NSW, Amy from southern Queensland and Donoman Arunga from northern Queensland. Ukorio, a friendly style of wrestling done on Kiwi Island in the Fly River Delta of western province of Papua New Guinea, involved one wrestler who had to defend a small mound of sand which his opponent was trying to destroy. Bumwain, the national style of Kiribati with a simple toppling victory performed during National Day celebrations. A similar sport is also played in Nauru. Whakatua, the indigenous style of tokelau used mainly to settle regional disputes between villages. Hokoko, the indigenous style of the Kanaka Maoli of the Hawaii Islands, first recorded by crew members during the HMS Resolution's 1779 visit to the main island as part of the Pānikahiko or Ancient Games, performed during the Makahiki New Year Festival. Along with Moko boxing, it is a core skill of the bone-breaking martial art of Lua Mamitsu Ringa, the indigenous style of the Maori of New Zealand, mainly used for warrior training but now occasionally being performed as part of the Matariki New Year festivals as a recreational activity. Moana, the indigenous style of the Maoha of Tahiti and French Polynesia, along with Tika, Mota and Amara Ofa will be included as part of the Haivarai Tahiti, a traditional sports festival held in Papeete every July. A similar sport is also played in the Cook Islands during the Te Mavanui National Day celebrations. Pi Tauva, the indigenous style of the Kingdom of Tonga, was first seen by Europeans in 1777, in which the artist John Webber recorded in lithograph. It combined boxing and wrestling, being performed as entertainment for visitors by both men and women. Taupiga, the indigenous style of the Samoan Islands, saw the wrestlers greased up with coconut oil before competitions and was an important part of the inter-village gatherings. Uma, also known as kulo kulai, is a hand wrestling game practiced by the indigenous residents of Hawaii. The contestants kneel and grasp each other's elbows on the same side. The object is to force one's opponent's arm to the ground. The game was frequently played by the Hawaiian ruling class. Weibo, the indigenous style of Fiji, was mainly used as a method of warrior training but also occasionally as a form of entertainment. In the early 20th century, indentured laborers were brought from India to work the cane fields, and the style of wrestling, kushti, was fused with Weibo to create a hybrid style similar to freestyle wrestling.